I think the world needs more men like you. To be able to say I wept unabashedly is just, it's wonderful. I mean, I'm truly moved by your overwhelming kind of display.
Before I start this interview and before I say thank you very much for such a wonderful series. I have never oscillated between simplicity and complexity of characters. I have never wept this much, and I have no shame in saying this loud and clear that I haven't wept this much. I have felt the Bandra auntie inside me just came out while watching the series. I could not take it. I was like, what have you guys done? How is this even possible? And I'm not saying this for effect, I promise you. So now that I've poured my heart out here, I can start.
How sweet.
That was so
That's so generous of you, Glenn. Thank you so much. It means a lot.
I think I will start weeping now.
I think the world needs more men like you. To be able to say I wept unabashedly is just, it's wonderful. I mean, I'm truly moved by your overwhelming kind of display. People are so held back with praise normally, and like I said earlier, we're all applause junkies and we worked really hard on this. So I'm truly touched. Thank you.
You know, Pooja, honestly, I'll tell you, I feel any kind of cinema when it's portrayed with so much of reality and honesty. For the first time, I'd like to tell all of you, I'd like to watch a series once again, only to understand and to decipher and try to break down कि नहीं, मैंने पहली बार इनके बारे में ऐसा सोचा था, शायद ये कैरेक्टर नहीं है. एक बार फिर से देखते हैं, इसमें थोड़ा सा और डेप्थ है. Interesting तो है ही, पर how can you oscillate so much between simple and complex? It's unbelievable.
Alankrita.
Yeah, let's clap for Alankrita for that. Yay. Clap for Alankrita.
I think the magic is in the writing for sure, and of course in the way we've been directed. And I think that somewhere I think we are all very simple but very complex people, where we are oscillating between kind of sheer joy to sheer angst most of the time. So I think that was that all our neurosis was used to the best of its ability in that sense. So we're very lucky, all of us.
And absolutely, and so beautifully portrayed. Like when I watched the first episode, ladies, I'd like to tell you, I felt कि कितना simple है, अच्छा कितना beautifully हर एक character को portray किया है और सारे characters को justify किया है. हर एक character के बारे में मुझे थोड़ा समझ में आया. Here when I went to the second character, like, no, this is not her. How did she? What? एक second. And Shahana, I want to say this for you. Can I do this in my style?
Absolutely.
Please.
Debbie, please. कितनी बार मैं बोलूं तुमसे compromise कौन नहीं करता?
Love it.
तुमने जो को music play करने नहीं दिया, but you did what you want to do here. I mean, seriously.
The Bandra auntie is definitely there.
But
thank you.
Wow. Because Shahana, your character especially, I can relate with you so much because it's so ambitious, it's so fierce, but there are so many complexes and layers to it. बहुत difficult होता है कभी-कभी ऐसे characters play करना. And yes, it's now a couple of times when I ask this to artists and I say this to actors, then this is a part of our job. But as a layman, I'd like to ask you, how do you switch then? It's so difficult to switch sometimes.
Switch between reality and the character.
The character that you're playing, because this is so close to reality, because all of us are like that at some point.
Yeah, so you're right. You just answered the question, because that's really what it is, that one has gone through those moments or seen it very closely and felt it with people, and it's something that is so real and accessible around you and within you that actually it doesn't feel like anything that is alien in terms of portraying. So I don't think anything that I played, okay, of course one has not experienced losing a child or failing at doing something, but you have a sense of trying to achieve something and constantly finding yourself in the same spot of failure. So there are always similar experiences that one can go into, but more importantly, and actually Plabita had said it in another interview, that I am also somebody who's like her, where I just try to put myself in that situation and think as that character. So for me, it's like, oh, if this was happening to me, how would I be reacting in that moment? I mean, even with most emotions, I'm not going to go into, oh, when I, Shahana, went through something, let me imagine that. No, I'm just here thinking now, and it makes you feel, because, and that's the luxury of working in something where you have good writing, great characters that have been developed, great actors that you can like leech off and mooch off. You know, I mean, you can just whether it's these wonderful people here, whether it is Vivek Gombar, Manish Chaudhary or Jeff, whoever I've had scenes with, everybody was so good. I mean, even people who we had who came in for a few days, whether it was, Niyamat and Azman, everybody was so good that it was very easy to feed off and almost play the scene as real, like as if it was happening in front of you. So that really helped. And, there's no modesty in here. I'm not, it's really just being lucky to have people, circumstances that allow you to do it. The thing I'll take credit for is having lived a life again that gives you some emotional, knowledge and experience and the ability to be able to mooch off well. So
But there's a beautiful line in the first episode. Pooja bolti hai ki women have a job and a family, and I was lucky to see that in my own house. I was brought up. My mother was a strong lady, and wow, I had a superhero at home. Growing up, I realized that it is, and I was lucky enough to have a father who supported her. And I've seen such a beautiful relationship between the two of them. But again, like I said, only two people know what's going on in their marriage or in their relationship. No one else knows about it.
Absolutely.
And I've seen this beautiful chemistry between them. But, having a job and a family is such a difficult thing to balance. I feel right now when I'm balancing my own family and my own job, wow, it is hard. It is hard, and it's just so realistically portrayed through the entire series. Plabita, I love your character because I feel there are parts of me in you and the whole character. I can say, "Arey, ye to main bhi hu." ऐसा मैं करता हूँ. I feel bad for you. I feel happy for you. मुझे रोना आता है आपके लिए कभी-कभी. फिर मुझे चिढ़ मचती है कि ऐसा क्यों कर रही है? क्यों कर रही हो तुम? क्या कर रही हो तुम? नहीं, don't do it. And it's like this. It's like I wish my remote had a button. It's like मत करना, मत करना, मत करना. Choose. Will she do it? Will she not? And then you do it. And I'm like, चलो कर दिया. अब आगे क्या होगा? Wow, you're ambitious. You're living on the edge. You've just portrayed all of us sitting here. This generation are always.
That's so true. That's so true.
So tell me, how? When you got this character, how?
I'm sorry, but I must kind of take a cue from you and compliment you about something. Is that you brought so much of dignity to your role, Plabita, and I think that you're inherent the way you look at the world with a certain degree. I mean, you're not unintelligent and unarticulate from any angle, but there's a certain innocence with which you look at the world, and I think you brought that to this character of Ayesha. And you get that feeling that he's saying, yaar, mat karo yaar, aise. But at no point are you looking at her and judging her, because you don't allow us to judge you, because you're doing it comes from a very pure place. And there were scenes that could have really gone the other end in that sense, because they're difficult choices. And it's so easy to judge. Like Fatima's judging you. I mean, and like I in turn, I'm kind of whatever. So I think that 3 cheers to you, for bringing so much dignity and grace to that character.
And thank you. So honestly, to be honest, I when I watch something, even if I have acted in it or my friends have acted in it, I watch it as audience. And there were moments where even I was like, okay, why is there were a lot of moments where I'm like, why is she reacting like this? Why is she doing this? Even for Ayesha. And I think that is great, because we had such writing and direction, like Alankrita, Bornila, Iti. So even when I was watching, even I didn't feel that this is me. There were so many times and I'm like, ye maine kaise kiya? Like, this is not me. This is not how I react. This is not the face I make. So like, what is this? So okay, this is Ayesha. Let me watch. So so I don't know how. Maybe honestly, it was challenging for me to think of when I first thought of playing Ayesha. Obviously, I read the script and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I'm so excited to do Ayesha. But when we reached for the workshop, and I was like, okay, now I am playing Ayesha and I don't know how I'm going to do that. So at the workshops, we had this exercise where I had to write down my characteristics, qualities of Plabita and of Ayesha. And there were like very few matching ones, like very few. And then I was like, okay, this is like of somebody very different from me. But I think as as humans, like we can relate to each of these characters. So
Right.
as a person, even though personally I've not faced situations like Aisha has, I mean,
Right.
thankfully I have always had very supporting parents, and I've always had such a good backbone that I never felt like Aisha. I never felt so vulnerable
Right.
in life.
Right.
But it's the writing and it's the whole the way the whole show is written, and the way it was made, and we had workshops to do. So I think it slowly, once I started thinking like her, I think it was all okay. Like I just made sure that whenever I was playing her, I don't have any Plabita thoughts in my head. As long as I have Aisha, as long as I'm thinking like her, I didn't have to put in any efforts. I just felt like, okay, this is me, this is Aisha right now. So until it's a cut, I mean, I think like Aisha. Whenever I had any Plabita thoughts, I know that I have to tell her that can we please redo this. But I think once I was Aisha, it was okay for me.
But it was clear, and it was loud and clear. I also have to tell you, your Amy Winehouse Valerie version is fantastic.
Thank you.
And even Fituri was very good, by the way. Very underrated.
Oh, you've heard that also. Thank you so much.
Fituri was very good. Like, I am a sucker for good music, and I know that it was really sweet.
Thank
Talking
you.
about-
I hope a lot of people watch this interview, and then then I get more like playback singing and stage singing offers.
And then Aisha replaces Chitra in season 2.
But talking about the writing and the direction, my God, par excellence. The kind of lines, the tiny nuances that I found within the entire series. Amruta ma'am, आपसे बात करेंगे कि आपने बहुत तगड़ा सिनेमा किया. You've done some crazy work. Gully Boy, Choked, and Raman Raghav.
Yeah,
Wow.
but I love her in that.
I love, what a film, what a dark, morbid space to be in, and what a film, आपने जिस प्रकार का सिनेमा किया, unbelievable. आपके कैरेक्टर को देखकर मुझे बड़ा बुरा लगता है time and again. वो मुझे ना एक पर्सनल इंसिडेंट याद आया था जब when a mother struggles to for her child, for अपने बच्चे के लिए to raise the child, and the mother will do anything to ensure that the child has a bright future. My question is, what frame of mind are you in when you're playing such intense characters? Like, इतना intense ये character था. There's constant empathy for you. There's constant feeling of अरे नहीं, सही कर रही है. एक point पर आके मुझे ऐसा लगा, नहीं ये गलत कर रही है, क्यों ऐसा choice कर रही है life में? So what is your thought process जब आपको ये character मिला?
So आपने बहुत अच्छे से बताया कि इंटरेस्टिंगली अभी आपने जब बताया, मुझे एक चीज़ याद आई कि all these films you were saying are different colors of motherhood,
Right, absolutely.
because I remember Raman Raghav also, that lady, उसके बच्चे को उसने बांध के रखा हुआ है, and her focus is that बच्चा and I have to save him. Gully Boy was another thing altogether, but
Right.
here Lily was in completely, she keeps on saying that motherhood is my dharma, but her motherhood is completely so challenging than all these motherhoods, because she being a bar dancer, then a prostitute and all that, and and she being single parent again, that's a different kind of, and single parent also, she's not a sophisticated single parent, right? मतलब घर में धंधा करते वक्त अपने बच्चे को बाहर भेजना, I used to just think when वो बच्चा वापस आता होगा कैसे फेस करती है, मतलब there is this thing, no, like he also knows what she does in like vaguely, and I saw it I saw it when I met Reshma Appa, when Alankrita made me meet her, and Reshma Appa herself is a bar dancer, and I went to Kamathipura to her house. She has twin daughters, and almost one of her twin daughter had a son, and all of them were out of wedlock, and the kind of equation. And then I still remember the question Reshma Appa asked me, शौहर है? And I was like, हाँ है, अच्छा है. And I thank Alankrita that she gave me this opportunity.
Alankrita, fantastic. I mean, writing से लेके सोच, मैं कभी सोचता हूँ कि कैसे कर लेती है, मतलब
मैं भी यही सोचती हूँ. And not only about this track, even Fatima's track, even Rani's, every track, मैं अलंकृता को बोलती हूँ, तुम्हें कैसे पता चलता है इतना सब कुछ, आप
लोग ने इतना तगड़ा सीरीज बनाया है, each one of you, like It's just been so amazing. That point where Pooja, Bhatt Karke, Shai say that character, Rani and Shai are talking and sharing their stories and they hug. That was the moment I wept like a baby. Because
So did I.
All of us did.
It's this moment where I felt goosebumps. I'll tell you another moment that I felt was intelligently done. There was this part where Naushad has Rani's sari on him and he's pleasuring himself. And the last shot, she comes wearing the sari. I am like, ye kya hai?
Yeah, that was actually his ex-wife's sari, the dead ex-wife the wife who's dead.
Right.
And that is a bone of contention between the two of them, because I mean, when you see them in bed for the first time, he ends up taking the dead wife's name. And there cannot be anything worse for a person, I think, is being called somebody else's name, when they happen to be in the throes of intimacy. And she keeps saying that, she says that I keep waiting for you to move on, and you don't obviously seem to move on. So in the end, I think that he has his issues, but he's overtly generous to her. So I think that's her way of actually making amends and saying, you know what, if this is what it is that turns you on or gets you off, I think I'm going to be able to indulge that fantasy of yours.
I think that is the most beautiful, like for me, that was the most beautiful culmination of security and compassion and compromise in love, and it's something that we have never seen and would never imagine, but the way in which it was written and the way in which it's shot and done, I think it's high time that we start looking at love and relationships and companionship from a new light. It's not just
Absolutely.
about I love you, bol mujhe, ye bol mujhe, wo kar mujhe, ye kar mujhe, khana khila,
There's so
chocolate
much
de,
to it, right?
phool de,
So
please.
much.
It's about being able to understand each other. We all come with baggage. We all have issues. How do we work with them? How do we go to the core of what you actually share with each other and what you're being able to do for each other? And I think that's what the beautiful thing is. And inadvertently, not that you can see that she doesn't do it with that expectation, but at the end he says Rani because that's when he's truly feeling grateful to her.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I love that scene.
I love one more scene where आप और रानी बात करें, Fatima and Rani having this conversation, और वहाँ पे betrayed and feeling betrayed and being the one to betray. वो वाली conversation, the parallels are drawn between the two of them. And I said, क्या writing है यार? कौन लिखता है इसे? क्या खाके लिखते हैं ये लोग? Because I also write. I also do a lot of comedy work, and when there's good writing, there's this feeling, and I'm sorry, I'm just too over-expressive. I just can't change the way I am. I just feel so happy. I'm like, ये कैसे लिखा यार? ये क्या सोच के लिखा होगा? इतनी simplicity, फिर भी इतना depth और इतना complex.
But isn't it true that we always forget, because when we're portraying or talking about betrayal, we always focus on the person who's betrayed. But the one who's committing the betrayal or is betraying also has their own guilt, also has a lot of baggage, and
I'm like, how it feels.
yeah. So it's
Also, what's very interesting for me in that scene is that while I'm that's the first time that there's a breakthrough in terms of Rani doesn't really kind of take help easily, especially from another woman. I mean, you offer that help in the past and she's like, I'm okay, I don't have menopause. But when that comes forth, that's the first time she allows herself to be, she's strong enough to be weak in that scene in front of Fatima. And when she's unloading her burden to Fatima and, conceding that, damn, I was with that man because he just made me feel so young. And she's feeling quite foolish that something as frivolous as that allowed her to get swayed into this relationship that's made her a wreck. And what's interesting is that while she's hearing me, there's an internal dialogue which we all have in life. It's like I might be listening to you, but there's a different thought in my head. And that, which is why she expresses that, and and her guilt is playing out at the same time simultaneously. So it's there on many levels, which is what makes it interesting.
It's also there subtly when Fatima is telling Aisha that people cheat on their spouses, and that for various reasons I'm not judging them. It's just thrown in there, but it's there coming out of her own guilt, her own thing. So. There's a lot of these little things.
I like Fatima's growth from earlier when she would be this thing about Deepak and then Rani, and then now she's like, okay, it happens.
But I'd just like to tell all of you, thank you so much. I think my time's up, and with all due respect, thank you for inspiring me with some great work. Thank you for leading with example. I don't say this for effect, and I feel very strongly about this series that you guys have done the best thing for 2021. We needed hope. You gave us hope.
Ah,
So
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
That is truly very, very generous of you. And I mean,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just as a mark of respect, thank you guys. Bye.
Much appreciated.
I have to blow you a kiss now.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.